I'm just here to provide this message from Nigel that he is not impressed. He is very disappointed in the bookish community, and he thinks that we're just a hot damn mess. Enjoy the tea.
Hey, hi, hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jess, and welcome to another installment of Book CommuniTEA, where I try to keep you abreast of the goings on and the shenanigans in the bookish community. So this is a continuation from last week. I said part 2, and then I didn't film it last week, but last week was primarily focused on the situation that went down on Twitter with author Emery Lee, and really just talking about neurodiversity in general in publishing and ableism in publishing. So I have additional receipts for that situation, because in that video I was explaining that some of the Twitter threads were deleted, but someone sent me those deleted Twitter threads so it can complete the story, and then we have the story. And then the clip that I said I forgot to put in last week, I have that also. It's just going to be another hodgepodge, chaotic, messy video, and I'm so thankful that y'all are embracing my mess and chaos. So let's get it poppin'. Previously on Book CommuniTEA. So Emery Lee is the author, the main person in the situation. He has a book coming out in May, and he has ADHD. And the original thread was him talking about how he feels that he lost 2 agents, or lost his agent, and then tried to get another agent, and they said never mind because of his ADHD and the accommodations that would have to come with it. And so there was a lot of conversation about that thread. I guess some people took offense and thought maybe that Emery was generalizing the experience of all people with ADHD or all people who are neurodiverse. And some people took offense. Some people, came to the side of Emery. And then he also named the agent. The agent tweeted and said it was not about ADHD, but obviously won't name what it was. So now there's all the speculation. Other people put their input in, like Courtney Milan, her experiences with being neurodiverse, and there was questions on, is that neurodiversity, and a lot of things. So this is where this deleted thread comes into place. So Emery said, okay, well, I'm back. Apparently there's talk going around that I am manipulating the situation because I just didn't want to take Beth's edits, and I'm now trying to shame her to lash back about hurt feelings. I don't know how you can draw that conclusion from my thread, but okay. This is especially upsetting because I literally had to speak to a slew of different friends to accept that this was ableism. I also feel like this demonstrates the fundamental point that Beth was not understanding what I was trying to explain to her because it goes so deep. I first emailed Beth on February 25th saying I'd come to an epiphany about why 4 beta readers loved and understood a project she said lacked basic info. I explained that neurodivergent readers understood it perfectly. She insisted my betas just lacked the experience to spot what was wrong. She asked me to reach out to established authors with ADHD, and I did, but I won't name them. They corroborated that neurotypicals generally don't get what we're trying to do. I made a thread with over 100 responses to show clear examples of how neurotypical/neurodivergent brains differ, and sent that to her. The point was that I was trying to get her to understand the ways that story expectations often exclude ND people so that we could take that into consideration in my edits. To say she let me go because I refused her edits is to ignore that I was still asking for discussion. As I said before, she ultimately decided she couldn't work with me so long as I was asking what I was asking. Whether she read my request as asking for her to try to see things my way or as me blatantly refusing her edits, I guess I don't know, but I never once stated that. I never once argued I wouldn't take her suggestions. In regards to the book we were working on, I even told her multiple times that I saw value in her edits and could see ways to proceed with them. Then she told me on the call she thought I'd do better with someone else. Honestly, if you feel like a client saying, please take into consideration why these things are preferable to me and making your edits as refusing your edits, this may be a you thing. The idea that an agent should not be open to a client's intent for their work is weird, but yes, The fact that asking her to consider the way hundreds of other indie folks corroborated as true for us in her edits got me fired is ableist. To refuse to consider any of those comments and just paint me as a problem for bringing them up is ableist. Again, do I want her canceled? No. The whole point of this was to show the way ableism is so normalized in publishing that even people like Beth, who fight for inclusion, can't see they're doing it. If I had asked her to understand the Asianness of my character, imagine the result. If I had said, please consider the way I think as a queer author so we can curate this book for queer audiences while still making it non-queer accessible, would she have fired me for refusing to cooperate? Would y'all really support that action? So why for disability? Anyway, that was the whole point of this. I'm not shaming her. I am not asking y'all to judge her character or turn on her. I'm literally just asking people to be aware of the ways ableism gets normalized and accepted as good writing, the way whiteness had for so long. I explained that I felt like she was curating the book for a neurotypical audience and that I wanted her to understand my position. I told her that I was still making up my mind on changes, but that I wanted us to work together to make this book right for both types of readers. So then there is a screenshot of a part of an email, and it says, so I just wanted to kind of show you where I am and how my brain works, because I'd rather work with you on how we can still keep things that make a story good for me while also making it understandable for neurotypicals instead of just curating it for the market. But ultimately, I feel like that's kind of impossible to do if you don't first and foremost see how a lot of things that are considered good craft actually make a book less enjoyable for a lot of indie audiences. This was the last email we exchanged discussing anything before she asked to get on the phone and told me how to sever our contract. I never said that I wouldn't take her edits or didn't want to work with her, and framing it that way just completely misses the point. And the fact that people are now trying to frame this as me refusing edits really says so much to me, because asking for understanding from an agent is not refusing edits. When I gave my editor feedback on my transness, she listened and understood. That's how this works. And I have discussed countless edits based on marginalization before, and never have I been so blatantly disregarded and condescended to as I did with these ADHD edits. So yes, that's ableist. If you don't see that, I don't know what to say. Maybe you have some ableism to check. Okay, and last but not least, people framing this as, wow, so terrible, attacking a woman of color. Like I'm not a whole ass trans person of color is some next level BS. I am literally Black. If you really think being loud on social media doesn't first and foremost hurt me, you are full ass kidding. Okay, really last thing, and then I'm muting this. I don't appreciate the way this is being framed as an attack on an innocent woman of color. I have expressed in every possible way that this isn't about taking her down. This is about the hurt I experienced and wanting better for disabled people. For this to be reduced to me as lashing out over hurt feelings just fundamentally misses everything I'm trying to say. And to hear this from so many people constantly advocating change until a friend was complicit in the harm is just so hypocritical. It says a lot to me that people are literally trying to frame me as a massive manipulator, preying on innocent women of color just so they can pretend their friend is flawless, especially when I'm literally just asking y'all to consider where your disability allyship is falling short. And frankly, yes, this is why I feel unsafe in this community, that my own friends would misconstrue everything I've said and straight up lie to defend an agent with a massive platform, all over me saying, I promise she's not a bad person, she just did a no-no. So yeah, it's funny how fast people can go from believe victims to persecute that lying traitor the second a friend is involved. And I think it's especially telling when the friend isn't even being persecuted. People are literally just questioning one decision she made. So that was a thread after the original thread that I shared that Emery posted. Then also in my first video, I inserted Courtney Milan, who inserted herself into the conversation. And like I said, Courtney doesn't sleep. She lives on Twitter, as do I. And so Courtney was expressing, she said, hey, there's a whole conversation going on about neurodiversity in publishing right now. I have a lot of thoughts about this, many of which are tangled up in my own experiences. I also don't think I'm seeing the full conversation that's happening, and I'm afraid to say something that people will think is responding to a subtweet that I didn't see or didn't register as a subtweet because I don't know the players who are talking about this very well. I'm writing this for people who have been despairing because they think there may be no or little space in publishing for neurodiverse people. I'm not writing it to subtweet anyone else, just to talk about my own experience as a neurodiverse person.
Then if this is not confusing enough already. So
I think that Emery Lee may have made a tweet, may have replied to something Courtney Milan said, but now it's deleted. But I saw that Courtney Milan had a quote tweet and the original tweet is no longer available. But Courtney said, I just want to clarify something. I accurately described myself as neurodiverse. I talked about the depression in the thread because that was where I had my experience in publishing.
So now I have the missing Twitter thread, and what I just showed you from Courtney was a response to Emery, because Emery responded to one of Courtney's original tweets in her thread where Courtney was speaking about her mental illness and her history with that in publishing. And so this is Courtney responding to what Emery said, because Courtney was feeling like Emery was gatekeeping, and she just had like an emotional response to what Emery was classifying as neurodivergence and mental illness. So that's why Courtney made another thread.
So Courtney's tweet says, this is a broader problem of systemic ableism if people are only rarely encountering what neurodivergence looks like. You're simultaneously figuring out the rules for how to write about while also world building the interior of a mind that people haven't often seen. And Emery Lee quote tweeted this and said, I just want to clarify something since this thread is talking a lot about depression. Neurodivergence does not equal neurodiversity.
Neurodivergence specifically refers to autism, ADHD, dyslexia, etc. They're cognitive disabilities, not mental illnesses.
This is not to say that mental illness people don't struggle here, but almost everyone I know in publishing has some sort of mental illness. Almost no gatekeepers I know are neurodivergent. It's a completely different wiring of the brain that makes it very hard for us to intermingle. And I think this is a huge part of the problem because people with mental illness cannot process the differences. Having ADHD is not a series of symptoms like it is for mental illness. My whole brain and outlook and understanding and ability to process info is different from neurotypicals. Mental illness is like a cup of water with a bunch of beads in it. It's difficult to drink because the beads are in the way. Those are symptoms. Meanwhile, neurodivergence is a glass of orange juice. It's a completely different beverage that can also have beads but doesn't inherently. So that is where the second conversation with Courtney Milan came in, where she felt like Emery was gatekeeping and kind of invalidating her mental illness. And so I looked up the difference between neurodiversity and neurodivergence.
So I went to the link that Emery put at divergent.com. I went to the blog, and they have, for the term neurodivergent, it is used to describe a variety of conditions related to cognitive abilities, though more often people with these conditions prefer neurodiverse. It applies to conditions such as autism, dyslexia, dyscalculia, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, and obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD. Neurodiverse individuals often struggle with soft skills, especially ones that apply to social interactions. Neurodiversity is an idea that takes into account variations in the human brain regarding learning, mood, attention, sociability, and other mental functions that doesn't pathologize the conditions, meaning they are not regarded as abnormal or unhealthy, but as differences to be understood and worked with. It largely rejects the medical model of disability.
Editing Jessica here, and sorry for the lighting, but I am trying my best to educate myself, and I have been reading all these different blogs and websites and comments from my last video about the difference between neurodiversity and neurodivergence. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm confused. So I'm gonna do my best to try to explain the difference, and if I'm wrong, please let me know, because I'm not gonna lie, I'm just not getting it. Place. Here you go. So someone in the... Was that a sneeze? Bless you. Okay. So someone in the comments left me 2 links, and this one was to a Tumblr post by the person apparently who coined the term neurodivergent. So the Tumblr post says, PSA from the actual coiner of neurodivergent. Why did I put my computer so far away like I can see? Yo, many of you need to take an entire stadium of seats like a football arena in Texas number. I coined neurodivergent before Tumblr was even a thing, like a decade or more ago, because people were using neurodiverse and neurodiversity to just mean autistic and possibly learning disabilities. But there's more, like way more, ways a person can have a different yet fucking perfect, damn it, brain. Neurodivergent refers to neurologically divergent from typical. That's all. I am multiply neurodivergent. I'm autistic, epileptic, have PTSD, have cluster headaches, and have a Chiari malformation. Neurodivergent just means a brain that diverges. Autistic people, ADHD people, people with learning disabilities, epileptic people, people with mental illnesses, people with MS, so multiple sclerosis or Parkinson's or apraxia or cerebral palsy or dyspraxia or no specific diagnosis but wonky lateralization or something. That is all it means. It is not another damn tool of exclusion. It is specifically a tool of inclusion. If you don't want to be associated with those people, then you are the one who needs another word. Neurodivergent is for all of us. Annoyedly yours, Neurodivergent K of Radical Neurodivergence speaking. So that is the person who coined neurodivergence, saying that that does include things such as ADHD, but also mental illness. But then I went to this other website that's called Neurocosmopolitanism. Dr. Nick Walters' notes on autism, neuroqueering, and self-liberation. And it's talking about the differences between neurodiversity, neurodivergence, and neurotypical. And let me tell you what, y'all. I feel real dumb reading through all this. I'm like, why don't I understand these things? So in my video, this one and the last one, I've been interchangeably using neurodiverse and neurodivergent, and that is incorrect. So neurodiversity is just the diversity of human minds, the infinite variation in neurocognitive functioning within our species. And it's not a trait an individual can possess. Diversity is a trait possessed by a group, not an individual. So when an individual diverges from the dominant societal standards of normal neurocognitive functioning, they don't have neurodiversity, they're neurodivergent. So that's where I was using it wrong. So if you have a group of people, and I guess some of them, you have someone who's neurotypical, you have someone with ADHD, you have someone with dyslexia, that's a group of neurodiverse people, but not one person can be neurodiverse. I think I am explaining that correctly. Again, let me know if I'm wrong. Nigel thinks I'm wrong. Hold, please. So neurodivergent, which is sometimes abbreviated as ND. So before I was saying I was using those interchangeably, neurodiverse and neurodivergent, but ND is neurodivergent. It means so neurodivergent, sometimes abbreviated as ND, means having a brain that functions in ways that diverge significantly from the dominant societal standards of normal. So it's a very broad term. It can be largely or entirely genetic and innate, or it can be a combination of the two. And there are people who can have multiple diverges from dominant societal norms. So a person can be autistic, dyslexic, and epileptic. So they would be multiply neurodivergent. And finally, neurotypical, or abbreviated as NT, means having a style of neurocognitive functioning that falls within the dominant societal standards of normal. From what I've learned here, and this doesn't say it exactly, but Emery said that neurodivergence does not include mental illness. However, the person who coined the phrase neurodivergent says that it does include mental illness. What I have learned also is that neurodiversity can only reference a group of people and not a person. But I guess the jury is still out if mental illness is considered neurodivergent. There are more sources. I couldn't read them all. If you know for sure, let me know. Or if you have an opinion, let me know. But that's all from my little educational part on this today, because I am not qualified to teach this. So please do not let me be the end all be all for your education on this topic. Please use that Google. And if you learn something else, let me know. Hopefully that gives you a more complete story of the situation that happened with Emery Lee. And from just a little bit that I have researched, I definitely know there's a lot more I need to look up to have a better understanding. I think we all could benefit from that. And I'm still not going to comment on whether or not that was wrong of the agent or Emery or anybody else. But now, hopefully you have a better understanding and a fuller picture of the whole situation that played out. I'm tired. Now we're back for part 2. Part 1 took entirely too long. So I think I'm only going to do these 2 topics today. So Emery Lee from the previous story is also involved in this, but not like the main part. He just has some threads I'm going to read. So the center of this story is an author that has written under the name Taylor Barton, Taylor Brooke, Brooklyn Ray, and Jupiter Wise. So someone had sent me part of this story a few weeks ago and I hadn't gotten to it. And I honestly forgot about it, I'm sorry. But it was from another author named Jude Sierra, who co-wrote a book with Taylor Brooke. Well, under that name, Taylor Brooke. And then recently there was an account that's just called Anonymous that says victims of, and talks about this person going under all these names. So this tweet says, victims of Taylor Barton, Brooklyn Ray have reason to believe that Jupiter Wise is Taylor using a new pen name. If this is the case, they are also performing brownface by claiming a Latinx identity, although they are white. Okay, so we're gonna look at my screen with all these tabs on it. So this thread, and it has the next few threads or the next few tweets have their evidence. So this shows Jupiter Wise's, so this is on their agent's page. It said, welcome Jupiter Wise, and here's a picture just showing the eyes, but it says Jupiter Wise's announcement photo on their agent's website includes a photo where only their eyes are visible. There's a clear resemblance between Jupiter's eyes and Brooklyn Ray / Taylor Barton's eyes. And here's a picture from Brooklyn Ray's Instagram. And also when I Googled Taylor Barton here, there's this image. And then when I Taylor Brooke, same person right here, just obviously a little different. Now, nothing Jupiter Wise didn't come up. They're using like an emoji or something or whatever, a character. So there was already one indication that might be the same person. Then under the pen name Brooklyn Ray, they shared photos of the Christmas tree on Instagram, and they had the same ornaments. Like this person was detailed. Showing the ornaments on the Christmas tree from the two different Instagram accounts. Then they have in the Christmas tree post, in the Christmas tree post, Brooklyn Ray, Taylor Barton makes a comment about new agent, new pen name right there. And more with the Christmas tree for evidence. And then they also said Taylor Barton and Jupiter Wise share the same zodiac chart. First image is from Taylor's. Tay is a lion, Leo, Taurus, Libra, same thing. So this is the Jupiter Wise Instagram, which is now either deleted or private. And in their bio, they have Brujo, and that is them pretending to be, or them trying to adopt a Latinx identity when they're obviously white. So they contacted, or Jupiter's agent had been contacted, Tara Gilbert, and she said she had never worked with a Taylor Barton or Brooklyn Ray. So it says many of the people Jupiter Wise interacts with regularly are previous victims of Taylor Barton. It is not our intent to dox an innocent creator nor force someone to disclose their identity, but to protect victims from them. So it's like, what did they do? So it goes back to a thread. So back in June of 2020, which was like the height of all the protests and everything in America and around the world with Black Lives Matter marches and protests. So the tweet is deleted and I can't find a screenshot of the tweet, but obviously they have some anti-blackness, some racist language or whatever that they've perpetuated, and then they made a really terrible apology. So the Emery's tweet says, you can't apologize for targeting vulnerable people of color by donating to a non-POC organization, especially when you were specifically spoken to about anti-blackness. This tells me you literally don't understand the beginning of what you're doing. I see they're donating from their lesser known indie account to an actual Black organization. So even in their reparations to our community, we get less than white people. Even in our reparations, we were a second thought. This is not an apology. Listen, there's a lot wrong with his apology that I don't have the time to dissect right now, but first and foremost, you can't apologize to a group by supporting a different group. That's adding salt to the wound. It makes it worse. This is horrifying and frankly embarrassing. And anyone acting like this is a good apology or centering the author here is really missing the point too. You can't accept an apology for someone else. And if you think this apology is acceptable, you have work to do. So this was a book they had coming out last year called The Ninth Life. I think it was being published by Inkyard Press. Someone in the thread also showed this, that they were using this as their icon, when they're clearly, they're using a brown icon and they're clearly white. And they're using multiple accounts. So they have Brooklyn Ray, then they have another one that's called like Tay is a Lion, or Tay's a Lion right here. And they have this apology. Oh, here's the apology. So I'm gonna try to zoom in. I called out for anti-Blackness and donated $500 to the Trevor Project, which is a great organization, but that doesn't have to do with racism. The apology says, I've made mistakes, I'm listening, I'm learning, growing, and taking steps to interrogate my own internalized racism. Anger has always been my shield, but vulnerability is the only way I will ever learn to grow. The conversation surrounding me and my actions, the hurt I've caused, and my missteps is important and necessary. Transparency in this industry about pain, abuse, and racism is desperately needed, and I'm thankful for the chance to become a better ally and author. I'm actively reaching out to those I've hurt with apologies, but I know that isn't enough. The only way I can make this right is by stepping back, listening to critique from my community, and doing the work to become a better person. Apologies are hollow, but I intend to make good on this. As a start, I've made a one-time $500 donation to the Trevor Project. To follow, all future royalties I earn off sales of The Ninth Life will be donated to the Trevor Project as well. To those I've hurt, I'm so sorry. I hope I can make this right somehow. So that's just a weird apology there. And so then Emery continued with, okay, so I don't want to let this die. Okay, so I do want to let this die so we can go back to focusing our attention on the people who matter. But first, I want to address why their apology sucks. These are things white people always do wrong when apologizing but never get held accountable for. Let's start with the obvious. What was Taylor called out for? Their apology is vague and beats around the bush. Sorry to the people I hurt. Who? BIPOC authors, especially queer ones, as well as people are manipulated, gaslighted, and silenced would be a start. People never want to say these things because it means admitting and writing just how terrible their actions were. They can't deny it, and anyone who didn't see other accusations will know now. But if you were really sorry, that wouldn't matter. Taylor isn't sorry. 2, who are you centering in your apology? If their first target was BIPOC authors, that should be the focus of their reparations, but it's not. They chose a big name, queer organization, because that org looks good on paper. They really thought it would get them support. But it still does nothing to the main groups they harm. Not to mention, they're more likely to receive the perks than anyone else. They're donating royalties, which most authors never see. To donate, they'd have to earn out, which benefits their career. They can literally use the fact that they earned out to negotiate higher advances down the road. Sorry I hurt people. Here's a flashy organization you can support by helping me boost my career as apology. Several people called them out for this yesterday, including myself. I specifically unblocked them so they could reply. But who did they reply to? Not me, the person they hurt. And who called them out? No, they replied to the white guy. Thank you, Tommy Wrights, for trying to reach them. Now maybe they feel bad. They replied, someone was asking them, how does donating to the Trevor Project act as amends for anti-Blackness? And Taylor said, I've donated all forthcoming royalties of another book coming out in September to Black Visions Collective. And they said, that still doesn't explain why you've chosen to center Trevor Project in your apology. And Taylor said, you're right, I'm sorry. I centered Black Visions Collective in the tweet on my other pen name, but it has a smaller following. I fucked up again, I'm sorry. And again, this is another account that has like a brown icon. Wrong. They not only emailed me, but their agent emailed my agent multiple times yesterday asking me to help them apologize. They have no problem invading my space as long as it's private. Why? Because the last time we did this dance, they gaslighted me and tried to have me canceled. They have specifically asked me to speak to them about these things in private because they know they can twist my words like they've done before. This isn't an apology. They're not sorry. Also, I want to note that even though Taylor admitted they fucked up about donating to the Trevor Project, instead of taking it down and revising their tactic, they pinned it unrevised to their profile. So Taylor then pinned their apology to their profile about their listening and learning. If you know what you did is wrong, you also acknowledge that the people you hurt have the right to not trust you, right? Especially when what you did was manipulate and gaslight people. But Taylor keeps asking people to reach out to them privately, which makes no sense. They've also taken the initiative in emailing the people they've hurt, with both only comes down to the people who've spoken up publicly, lip service, and is just generally intrusive. If you manipulated someone, showing up in their inbox is terrifying and centers your feelings. But everything about this apology has centered Taylor from the beginning and that's obvious in how blatantly it fails to address the actual groups that were harmed. The last thing I want to address in Taylor's agent, and frankly, this is a big one. So Taylor's agent, Saba, is defending Taylor on the grounds that they're sorry and trying to do better, which is previously stated is obviously not the case, but here are a few places she went wrong. One, it would have been easier for me to leave Taylor. Hypothetically, maybe, but no. Most agents are deeply hurt to lose a client. And frankly, when you put that much time and energy into someone's career, canceling them is not great. That's time and money sunk. But in Saba's case, her client is white. Why cancel someone you can easily redeem? Ooh, yikes. And so Saba's tweets are, this is not the end of this, and I will personally make sure of it. I have to believe that people can change, we'll listen, we'll make reparations, that there is a point to this fight. We are all fighting to end systemic racism. For Black people, I am listening. Thank you. It would have been easier for me to leave Taylor, to cancel them, but that wouldn't have changed anything long-term for the people they hurt, for the industry. I want to see this through correctly and ensure they right their wrongs the way everyone who has ever been racist should. That is very interesting. I want to give him another chance. Do you? This brings us to the assertion that canceling Taylor wouldn't help Black people or publishing long term, which I addressed yesterday. Not only is Saba absolutely the wrong person to make either of these assertions, but they're flat out wrong. Black people are silenced on the daily because white people know they can abuse us and get away with it. There's no accountability. Taylor actively targeted people they saw as beneath them, BIPOC, queer people with fewer industry connections. They trampled and sometimes ended our careers so they could get ahead because they knew there would be no accountability. Because this far, there almost never is. Holding Taylor accountable and effectively canceling them is the best move for the community. Not only because it says if you abuse and trample your peers, there will be consequences, because it takes away their power to do it again. Look, change, I believe in it too, but Saba made a fatal mistake here. She thinks you can change a seasoned abuser overnight. Very true. If Taylor really sees what they did and understands the need to change, they also understand this isn't a little mistake. They didn't misspeak. They didn't just write a racist book. They manipulated and abused people for years, namely Black and queer people. If they truly want to change, they should realize this will require time. They should realize people won't trust them. They should decenter themselves. But neither Taylor nor Saba sound like they want active change. They sound like they want to save face. And frankly, I don't accept their apology. We need proof that Taylor isn't going to hurt anyone else, and that's not proof we can see overnight. That's proof that takes years of hard work. Is that tough? Hell yes, but they earned it. That's accountability. Also, if you were consider supporting their book because it gives to a non-Black charity, here's a review talking about how their token Black character isn't even labeled Black on page, but they're still going to use their anti-Blackness to sell copies.
I went to look at the review, but it's no longer up.
When I forgot, they also subtweeted this reviewer, twisting their words to boost their book. I don't think an apology was ever issued, but yeah, please boost their career by buying this book. It gives to charity. And so on Emery's thread, I guess Taylor commented, Emery, if you want to open a dialogue, I'm here. I want to listen and make amends. I want to do better. May I please reach out to you privately? We can speak on the phone or through DMs or email. And Emery said this was Taylor's response to this thread, where I unpacked how abusive it is to expect people you've abused to speak to you in private about your bad behavior. After being called out politely for this tweet, Taylor deleted their account, but screenshots are forever. Amen, amen. I wish I had the original things on what they did, but it just sounds like they have a history of manipulating people, gaslighting people, and specifically BIPOC and queer individuals, and then, trying to hash it out in private, and the character in their book not even Black on page. Hot mess express. So that was all from last year. At least that thread was from last year. It seems like they had been doing all their mess for years. But then also more recently, there's another author, Jude Sierra. So in 2018, under the pen name Jude Sierra, she wrote a book called Shadows You Left with Taylor Brooke under that name. And Jude Sierra is Latinx, and Taylor Brooke was basically brownfacing is Latinx, and they co-wrote this book together. And then in 2020 or this year, Jude Sierra found out that Taylor Brooke changing their name to Brooklyn Ray was going to republish the book they co-wrote, but just under their new name. And they changed a little bit of the story, but it's basically still the same story they co-wrote together, and basically was like, okay, I'm just republishing this, changing the name. This is my story, and leaving Jude out of it. So already more messy behavior. Reed, Taylor, Brooklyn, Jupiter situation, and how they have compounded feelings of violation and helplessness time and again, including currently refusing to pull publication of my stolen work still, as well as now finding out that Taylor was writing under a new name, masquerading as a Latinx author. As a Latinx author who has confided in Taylor about some of my struggles as a Latinx author, I just can't. I've tried my absolute best to be a professional as possible on social media while dealing with Taylor stealing my work. I found out about the caged match. That's what Taylor renamed the book. So it was Shadows You Left, and they renamed it Caged Match. Situation over a month ago, I sat on that knowledge while trying to figure out what I wanted to do about it. Honestly, the last option besides giving up I wanted was to take it to social media, which means I've kept some of the more personal things that hurt me back in order to keep things clean and clear. That's over. The month before speaking up about Cage Match Shadows was more difficult than I can explain. I was already struggling to come back from depression. There was a part of me that felt absolutely broken by Taylor stealing our story. The feeling of violation and helplessness I've experienced left me unable to function for days. I'm struggling to find words to match how broken Taylor has made me feel. And so it's a really long thread, but they go to, just talking about their personal feelings and relationship with Taylor, and it looks like it's been pulled off of Amazon, but she's not sure if Taylor did that or if Amazon did it. Friends have helped her reach out to a lawyer, but it's still an ongoing situation. She also said that she's spoken to Taylor about being Latinx in the publishing community, pain that she's experienced in real life, people asking her to prove that she was Latinx, and then having Taylor trying to pass himself as Latinx under a new name, and she just doesn't understand it. And she's tired of feeling helpless. That was her story. She put a lot of heart into it, and now it's being stolen by somebody you thought was your friend, but also just lied about so many aspects of their life, and just a lot went into that. But then there was also, Jude Sierra has multiple threads about the situation that I can link down below if you want to read them further. But this was a statement that was sent to me a few weeks ago, and it's from Jude Sierra on March 3rd that said, "It has come to my attention that our previously published book, Shadows You Left, co-written with Taylor Brooke by Entangled Press, is being republished and self-published by Taylor under the pen name Brooklyn Ray. According to their Instagram post, this is a revamped book from an old co-written endeavor named Cage Match. Although it appears some changes have been made to the story, it is clear from the synopsis that the book has maintained its core plot. I was not informed that Taylor/Brooklyn was planning to re-release this book. I was never approached about this project nor given a chance to read it. I did not consent in any way to them profiting from my work without crediting me or paying royalties. I put tremendous labor into all aspects of writing this book. Shadows You Left was a highly personal book, and I put a lot of myself into it. While pulling it from publication was very painful because I love that book, the choice to do so was easy. For more context regarding some of the reasons why it was pulled, you can find more information in this thread. From what I can tell, changes were made to the character I wrote as Taylor and I wrote alternating chapters for specific character POVs. However, we also developed every aspect of the plot together, edited the entire novel together, and rewrote long sections of each other's chapters. This is a complex situation because both Taylor and I have legal copyright to this book. I've explored legal options, but short of very expensive legal action, I cannot stop the publication of this book. To be clear, I'm not interested in receiving any royalties or working with Taylor/Brooklyn. I just want readers to be aware of the situation. So if you see this book Caged Matched by Brooklyn Ray, don't read that. So that situation is a mess there. And then there also was a situation with a newer author. So this is a tweet from March 14th, and it's by Vianne Lodonio. So some of you might recollect that I have been working for the past months on the development of a graphic novel with Jupiter Wise, who has been outed as a white person pretending to be Latinx with me, an actual Latinx person. Here's my angry rant. I'm mad because of the obvious reasons, but more than that, we were working on a story about Latinx immigration. Wow. We weren't really friends, more like working partners. We had the same agent, but I was finding it hard to work on writing due to my chronic illness. So when I saw Jupiter had a cool idea for a story, I decided to collab with them. So they started working together, and Vianne said I overlooked their lack of knowledge about certain aspects of Latinx culture because they claim to be second generation. I'm like, okay, that's fair, that happens. So they helped with character naming conventions and such. And then the part that Vianne is most angry about says I put them in contact with my boyfriend's mom. She's been an immigration paralegal and advocate for years. She's helped countless people with no expectations of payment. I can't really put it into words, but she's one of the most badass people I know. She gives Jupiter some extremely detailed info about how immigration works, examples of stories of people she's helped, etc. She's excited for the story. I mean, it's her life's work. I'm excited too, because this is a topic that is very dear to my heart. My family immigrated from Colombia to Costa Rica and then to the States. This is my life. Anyway, fast forward, I've worked on this project, but I'm advancing very slowly because of health and life. I feel very guilty about it. The last message I have from Jupiter before they deleted their account was them asking when I was going to work on it again. Anyway, I've been going through some shit, but today I checked my messages to the news that this catfishing bastard has deceived so many people, and in my case, they also made me waste my precious time in working on a project that was completely inappropriate for them to write. And so they're talking about how angry they are because, they have to throw away this work, angry because they invited them in, to their life to meet someone who is very important to them. They don't understand why they did it. It's disgusting and made worse by the fact that I collabed with someone I didn't know very well because of my health, and I trusted them, and it turned out like this. Anyway, white people, I hope you read this thread and buy a book by a real author of color. As for me, well, I'll get my shit together and start working alone, I suppose. Why do white people want to be oppressed so badly? I don't get it. It ain't cute. I understand. I don't understand. I understand none of it. I do not understand why you want to be oppressed. What do you get from it? What benefit do you get from pretending to be a different, to be a part of a minority group? Why? Do you think it's like great shit over here? Just like free money and free everything over here or something? Because it ain't. This is really weird. We're going to have to transition downstairs because I have to put some salmon in the oven, okay? I'm downstairs. We got new furniture. So I'm going to finish this video up right here. So now we've seen that this Taylor, Brooklyn, Jupiter person has had a history of manipulating people, gaslighting people, especially queer and BIPOC, and then also pretending to be Latinx, wrote a book with a Latinx author, and then now is republishing it without their knowledge or permission. Well, before she knew about it. Nigel is not cooperating, so we're just gonna look a mess. So, writing a graphic novel about Latinx immigration with a Latinx author while still pretending to be Latinx. It's raggedy and ghetto, and I don't like it. So then Jupiter Wise's current agent found out, I don't know how, but they quote tweeted the tweet from the anonymous account. Their name is Tara Gilbert. Tara said, "I recently found out my client, Jupiter Wise, lied to me about their identity. See thread below. Long story short, when I offered rep and they didn't want to speak by video because of dysmorphia, I wanted to respect that. I'm a huge advocate for mental health and personal security. I would never violate my clients by forcing them to do something they were uncomfortable with. Unfortunately, that also gave Jupiter/Taylor the perfect opportunity to lie to me, not only about who they are, but about their publishing history. Never once did the names Taylor Barton or Brooklyn Ray come up when I signed them. I'm heartbroken and shocked by this. Thank you to all the people who reached out to me and brought this to my attention. I have terminated my partnership with them." Whew. So, y'all, what is going on? Why are people so ridiculous? And this time, this was more on the author, but also their old agent has some culpability too, to say, I'm not going to cancel them. I'm going to give them another chance. I don't know. I can't even think of an example where it's something easy where you could just apologize and move on. You just don't stop being racist. You know what I'm saying? It's not an overnight. You might have to be Papa John and go to freaking racism rehab. It's just so ridiculous. And I hope that all made sense. So Taylor Barton, Taylor Brooklyn Ray, Jupiter Wise, all the same person. All a white person pretending to be Latinx and has harmful history towards BIPOC and queer people, and obviously can't apologize, can't take responsibility, stealing work, publishing work that they did with another person. And it's gross. So just so you know, if you're browsing romance books or something and you see any of those names, maybe think twice before you read them.
So Jupiter's ex-agent Tara tweeted, "I'm getting a lot of new followers. Hi, thank you. But I'm also really paranoid, so I'll be blocking any accounts with no followers or that are brand new. I found this one and I believe it to be Jupiter/Taylor. Please be careful. And then here is that account. And someone else said, if this really is Jupiter, you unfollowed me in 2020. Don't try to follow me in 2021 with a sock puppet account. I'm not in the mood for your foolishness, Taylor. Go on now. Get! And finally, Jupiter/Taylor/Brooklyn, whatever. If you're reading this, go fuck yourself and get off the internet forever.
Okay, so one, I'm trying out new sunscreens for this like vlog that I'm doing, and this is the Black Girl sunscreen, and while it blended in well, I feel very greasy. Like, I don't mind being a little shiny, a little dewy, but I feel greasy with this one on, and I don't know if I love it. Like, it feels and it looks greasy to me. It might look different in the camera, but I'm upset. Anywho, another thing is that there is just so much happening and so many things I want to do that I hope you just bear with me. Like, there's so many things and so many conversations happening with like publishing and influencers that I'm going to do a video on, about some specific books that I'm going to do a video on. So like, there's so many things. I can't cover them all, but there are also some big things that I don't want you to think like I'm skipping over them. It just takes time, and as much as I know people like having 2 of these videos in 1 week, they're very time consuming and taxing. And I've been noticing that I've had less time to read and like do other things that I need to do. So they're just going to be delayed. Like, they're coming. The publishing industry, bookish community, looks like they want to keep me busy with content, and you know, I'm happy, but you just have to be patient with me, and it'll be like a weekly thing, rarely twice a week, just because it just is too time consuming. So they might be a little bit longer. I hate when they're over 30 minutes. I already feel guilty, but people seem to enjoy them. Like, they like to put them on while they're doing something else and listen to these long videos. So they might be a little longer, so I can try to include a little bit more information, but I want to be able to address the topics as thoroughly as I can and try to show you all the information that's available. And especially for some of these upcoming topics, there's lots to share and talk about. So I appreciate you all. But that's it for now. As I said, you'll expect one on Tuesday. There's more tea to come. So thank you for watching. Please give this a thumbs up if you liked. Subscribe. Check out my description box. I always have links to any information I can provide from the video. Links to things that are going on worldwide and ways to help. Links to my social media and ways to support my channel. So I'll see you in my next one.